Hello everyone, how's it going? So today I bring you my PYROBOT that has around 35 years more or less. It has been on a shelf for all this time. Some parts have been lost and some are broken. So what we'll try to do is fix it. So to show you that it's not working, I will put some batteries on it and try to turn it on. As you can see, no signs of life. It is supposed to do some lights and some movements, and it's doing nothing. Just to be on the safe side, I will try another pair of batteries. And yeah, still nothing. So let's get into it and remove the 4 Phillips screws. So to open it, we need to remove these little clips on the side and then pull the back out to reveal the inside of the robot. So let's test the button to see if it works. With the multimeter on continuity, I will test if the button will or will not work. It has to beep when we have continuity on the button. So the button is working. So let's put in some batteries and with the multimeter test if there is some voltage. So as you can see, we have some voltage, so the problem is not on the button. So let's proceed to take it apart. So we need to remove all the wires that are connected to the body, and this solder is very old, so it takes a little bit to remove. So let's do a small test just to see if we have the lights working or not. So yes, we do have lights. So if we have voltage on the button, I'm not sure why at least the lights would not turn on. So let's dig deeper into it. So let's do a test with the engine or motor if you want to see if it works. And it does work. So I'm not really sure what the problem was. Everything seems to be okay. The engine is turning, a little slow, but probably because the battery is a bit drained. The wheels are turning inside, so I'm not really sure what happened here, but let's keep on going. So let's give it here a little more power. So let's remove the base of the motor. We just need to unclip it and pull it. We remove the two Phillips screws. So here's the interior. This little clip is probably what does the shooting sound. That little star on the bottom hits this and it will do the noise like if it's shooting. Curious. The wheels seem to be okay. A little grimy with this old grime, so we need to replace that as well. So let's then use some IPA to clean all this grime off and put some new one. let's place all the wheels back in place. It's a little difficult because they need to be put on the correct places. So So here we can see the switch that turns the lights on and off when the toy is running. So this switch is broken now, but this is never easy. Now we have to remove all this and put it back in place. This should not be hard, it only goes one way, so let's just put it back in place and glue it. So after using some IPA, we put a little drop of super glue, and we use this same super glue to at least hide the cracks on the screws, where the screws go, and we reinforce the plastic with that throughout. So we leave it to glue for a while. The super glue, it glues fast, but it needs at least 10 minutes to dry out. So let's leave it as is and come back to it. So we now disassemble the arm. This little part here is broken. Luckily we had the missing part inside the mechanisms, so we can reassemble this and the arm will be in use again. For this we'll just clean it with a bit of IPA and then we glue it with super glue. So we'll now be using super glue again to close all the cracks that are opening, put the little plates back on place so that we can restore this little part and give some movement to the toy back again. I have found a channel on YouTube from a lady that does this sort of thing, and she fixes a lot of different kinds of toys from the 80s and the 90s, and this specific robot, she also does it, and she prints 3D parts, she does assembles stuff. It's really good. I'll put a link on the description. So with the parts glued in place, we reinforce it a little bit on the cracked areas so that it doesn't break again. And we disassemble the rest of the arm to clean it. So the base, we just push the axle out of place with a little precision tool and we remove it completely. So this part, we also need to reinforce it with a bit of super glue. So here we can see the mechanism that that the toy uses to communicate with the gun. It is using metal to connect from one part to the other. I thought the wires were all connected throughout the gun, but they're not, which is curious. So the gun, we saw that it was not lighting up, so let's use a multimeter just to check for continuity from one part to the other, because if the lamp is broken, it will not connect. If it's not, it will connect and do the beep. So there is no continuity. That means that the bulb is not working. We need to replace it. So let's open our laser gun. So let's then check closer if the lamp is or is not good. I think it's not, because I don't see the wire that connects the two parts. Thus, that's the reason she did not beep on the multimeter. So here a closer look, and we can see that there is no filament on it. So this is the new lamp, as you can see, if you can, because it's a little hard, it has the filament inside. Let's then test the new lamp to see if it works before we put it in. It does work, excellent. So we now need to remove the gears from the head so we can then disassemble it and get into the interior to remove the parts that we need to be out so we can clean it. So let's do a little test to see if all the lamps inside work. It's curious because I thought that there were more lamps inside the head, but the little plastic thing seems to have more and it does not. Now they're working. So let's then remove the on and off switch and remove the soldering, the old soldering, so we can then clean everything up. So we have our classic with soapy water, which is water with some detergent to wash the dishes, and the water must be warm so that the dirt gets out of the parts. So this little part that moves the arm and the head will pass a little bit of isopropyl alcohol with the toothbrush to remove the dirt, so that we then put some glue to put it together. This part has to be done with care because we don't want to break it any further. So let's super glue it so that we can remove these little cracks that it has, and it keeps strong. The screws that are rusty, we'll put them on some WD-40 and leave it to act a little bit so that it's easier to remove it. So let's clean the contacts a little bit, so then we can remove it from the lamp, and then we put it on the new one. We do the exact same thing on the other contacts that go into touch on the pistol ones. So the cleaning of the plastic parts, we just use the toothbrush and rub it so that all the dirt that has not been removed by the warm water gets removed. So we rinse everything up on some cold water, and we put it on the cloth and then outside that on the sun until they dry up. So the screws where the rust has not been removed by the WD-40, we use this little brush to clean them out. So this way the screws will get a little shinier and prettier and will last for the next 40 years to come, hopefully. And the contacts for the lamp, we do exactly the same thing in order to ensure that it will have a good contact between these and the other ones. The button also had a few rust areas where we can pass the sand to clean it. Let's double check that the button is still working. So we will now apply new solder to make sure that all the contacts are in good shape, and we do it in all the wires. We tin them and put solder on the other wires that already had it, so that it does a good contact and the little toy continues to work. We also put a little bit of grease on the wheels as well to make sure they don't overheat and break. So we do a small test just to make sure that the wheels are turning. So we tested with the box closed to make sure that it is all working, which it is. So good enough for me. As you can see, the inside, the switch is being turned by the little wheel, and this will then make lights come on and off. So let's prepare the new lamp for the old contacts. When we do this, we always need to tin the wires, otherwise they will not connect to the solder points that we will be using. To remove the contacts, we just need to apply a bit of heat and they will drop. So let's then solder the wires of the new lamp on the contacts. So with this done, let's do a little test to see if it still works. Which it does. Excellent. So let's apply a bit of flux on our switch to also put new soldering for the wires to be held in place. So for this specific case we need to be very careful applying the solder, otherwise we may damage the switch, because the switch is plastic and it may melt. If it does, it's game over for this toy. So we need to be very attentive when we put this. So basically we need to heat up the copper so that the solder then melts with the help of the flux that we just put in. So this was my best, so let's try and then connect everything up. So to assemble, we put the lamp inside the translucent plastic and put the contacts in place so that we then assemble it back. When we do connect the both parts together, just make sure to put the wires inside, otherwise they may get stuck and get damaged because they are very thin. So let's do a little polishing again, just to make sure that this area is very clean. So let's do the final test, and our laser gun is working. We need to be very gentle to place this part that was broken, so that it doesn't snap while we are attaching it. Apart from that, everything seems fine. So with the head fully assembled, let's just test if the lights are working. So green light is okay. And the red light also lights up. That's good news. Let's keep on going. So the wheels of the robot, they are very dirty, so let's just clean it with a bit of IPA on a cotton bud. So let's then test our wheel to see if it's working as it should. It does. So let's then assemble it all back in place once again. So to assemble the toy back together, we need to make sure that we took a picture of all the wires. I did not mention this before, but it's always good when we open it to take a picture so we know where to put them back, because in this case I disassembled it last week and assembled it this week, so I would not remember where they would go. So this part just consists of me soldering all the wires back in place. So on this little switch we always need to be very careful, because we are soldering with plastic around it, and besides the plastic we now have the wires that also melt, so we need to be very aware of what we are doing. So assembled, we will now clean our little robot's contacts for the batteries, because they will also need to be very clean in order to pass the electricity into the engine and lights. So let's put the batteries to see our little friend in action after 30 years, or 35. So we have a problem right now, so we need to reopen it and see what's going on, because it's not doing what it should. It should move the arms and blink the lights. It's not doing any of that. So something has gone faulty again. So yeah, the problem here is the age. This little wheel that passes the power from the torque from the engine to the arms, it snapped and it's now loose. So in order to do this, we will need to clean it and glue it, because I don't have any new parts for this. So we do a very thoroughly clean with some IPA to remove the grease that I have put before, so that we then can put it on the axle, also cleaned, in order to glue it with super glue. So we apply a drop of glue on top of the axle and on the part itself, and then we just need to put it in there and wait for it to dry out. So when we place the little wheel back in place, we need to make sure to pull it with a bit of care so that it doesn't snap for good. So we just push it gently until it reaches the top of the axle, and then we leave it for 10 minutes to dry out, because this is plastic on metal, so we need to make sure it's properly sealed and seated. So as you can see, it's very tight, and we now can assemble it back. So in order not to waste your time, I will show you now it operating assembled. So we now have another problem. It does move the top part but not the bottom, so I suspect another wheel was broken, but on the bottom half of the engine. So to save you some time, I will just do all the same that I did on this little wheel to the bottom wheel, and then assemble it back and show you how it goes. So yes, as I suspected, one of the wheels was broken, and I just needed to do the same procedure. So here is now working as it should. If you guys enjoyed it, this was very rough to do. It gave me a lot of work, so if you could subscribe, leave a like, I will thank you. See you again.